The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of State in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. This is 3D Politics. With me, your director and host, your verbal Viking, Tommy McKay, right here at 3D Politics every Monday night, interviewing Oklahoma political intellectuals in an American community of the culturally pertinent. Tonight, we'd love for you to meet Chip Paul, Oklahoma's most influential cannabis executive. That's right, Chip Paul. Tonight, live, he's going to explore marijuana as a freedom and liberty issue, as well as touching what he usually does. Speaker, educator, writer, medical marijuana expert, primary author of the petition which became State Question 788, earned also a 57% yes vote at the ballot box. He is going to be explaining the upcoming petitioning efforts by the nonprofit Oklahoma's for Health, that is OFH. So without further ado, let's bring him in right on time. Look at that. Chip Paul, we got to make sure to hear your video. There he is. Chip Paul, can we hear you?
Yes.
I can hear me too. This is fantastic. We always have to check now. We never can just assume that we each hear each other.
Absolutely.
So this is fantastic to have you on the show. Typically, they're pressing you about all the chemistry stuff that you know. Tonight, we're going to venture off into some of the liberty issues that you find pertinent with this particular topic. But I will tell you, I'm quite interested in a lot of the chemistry and science behind what you've already done, so I'll probably lean into that. I gave a little intro about State Question 788 and how you helped that. 2018 Tulsa Man of the Year from Tulsa World, featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Herbage Magazine, New York Times, Politico, operated right at home, a senior care facility from 2007 to 2014. But I got a question. How does a sixth-generation Chickasaw Oklahoman with a degree in mathematics get into chemical research?
Oh, boy. It's just, I'm a why guy. I mean, I'm a really why guy. And, medical cannabis kind of changed my life, and that really opened me up. And I've done some other why stuff. I mean, I had some electrical engineering, let's say, ending patents and stuff back in the day. But because medical marijuana just opened me up, and it really made me wonder why this works for so many different conditions, right? It seems so disparate, how many different conditions that marijuana would work for. And so that really got me into the why of medical marijuana, and that got me to the endocannabinoid systems. Yeah.
So, but I mean, you already did you have a chemical background, or you just used your scientific knowledge that you had at the time to work into chemistry of this particular type?
I have a mathematics. So I have a degree in mathematics, and then I almost have a master's in electrical engineering, but it was more kind of IT based and network based. And I just kind of stopped. But I'm kind of a why guy, right?
So you just dug in. You're kind of you found a niche that you just dug into and turned every page you could there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's such an open field because it really, like the endocannabinoid system, it hasn't been researched in any traditional way. And it's really because of the kind of the pyramid, if you will, or the triangle, where you have FDA and pharmacy and physician.
Right.
And because marijuana affects the endocannabinoid system and it kind of can't get in the triangle, the endocannabinoid system hasn't been researched in a traditional way. But there's tons of research on it if you just go to NIH.gov. But it's not in the FDA research, right? And so for that reason, there's a lot of room there for just theory and kind of it's just no one's been there, right? So, and for whatever reason, I'm drawn to it. For whatever reason, you could say God put some stuff in my head, or whatever you want to say.
No, we all have our desires there that are driven like that.
But the cool thing is, it's we have now a nice university relationship, and this university relationship isn't most university relationships. You go as a company and you go, how can I take your stuff and make money on it or whatever?
Right.
That's not our relationship with our university. It's the other way around. They're not coming to me. How do I make money on your stuff? But they want our intellectual property, and then they're wanting to develop it, because literally this university is the preeminent kind of cannabis, if you will, university, University of Mississippi, because they've been growing it since 1968 for medical research. So,
wow.
Yeah, and so I'm very honored, to be a part of kind of that, and just be a part of their, system. So they help me not make mistakes, right? So they help me not make mistakes as far as the claims that we make. And again, our company called GnuPharma, we can do all this without marijuana, which is the great thing. And so they work with our company called GnuPharma.
Silent G in GnuPharma, and that is at GnuPharma.com, established in 2015, when you discovered that the endocannabinoid system can be influenced with natural products. What does that mean?
So that means that in the same way that cannabis affects the endocannabinoid system, so cannabis works by THC mimics something in the endocannabinoid system called anandamide, which hits your CB1 neuroreceptor and does work. Okay. Other things in cannabis, well, THC also hits your CB2 neuroreceptor as well. So it hits CB1 and CB2, and both of those two things do work. That happens to be the way that your body regulates. So it can do a lot of work. Okay. And it really helps to mimic, the sort of the thing that helps your body just do work. So engineering wise, that's a great thing, right? So there's other things though in nature that do that same thing. Okay. So something in kava, so if you've ever heard of the herb kava, there's something called yanganin. Yanganin does the same thing. It hits CB1 and helps do work. There's something in black pepper, black cumin, called beta caryophyllene.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
That hits CB2 and helps CB2 do work. Okay. So there's lots of things in nature that also affect this endocannabinoid system. And again, it makes sense, Tom, because we share it with most life on the planet.
Oh my gosh. If everybody sounds like that to me, like, Tom, snap out of it, man.
So if you're a deer,
it does, it makes sense. Yes.
Yes. So if you're a deer, out there in the wild, you've got to feed this endocannabinoid system just like we humans do. But we have this sort of natural way to do it with, marijuana and cannabis, where we can kind of magic screwdriver it that they don't understand. So they've got to hit it through nature. We should hit it through nature, but thank goodness we've also got this, kind of side thing that we can kind of help it along with.
And so, but the deer, I mean, I don't know if, so do all mammals have endocannabinoid systems? Is it a mammal thing?
Not only that, everything on the planet but insects have an endocannabinoid system. So your reptile has one,
which counts me in.
Has one, your parrot has one, your fish has one.
You had me at reptile, so I'm in.
So it's that common. It literally in the guy.
Wow.
Again, I'm kind of a globule of evolution and creation, if you will. But in the guy that we went from, where we diverged from insects, is the same kind of common ancestor, if you will, of where we went from an invertebrate to a vertebrate. Okay. So something called a sea squirt. And the guy that where we went, we were basically an invertebrate that attached to a rock, and he was a little spongy thing that lived at the bottom of the ocean. Then his larva was a vertebrate he had a tail, and he'd swim to the next rock, attach, pow, and become that guy again. So this guy, this little guy, is the first guy to develop an endocannabinoid system. Okay.
And I was too busy. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's where we diverged from insects. So insects went one way. They do not have an endocannabinoid system. Everything else on the planet does have an endocannabinoid system.
Wow. And so I was yucking it up, trying to have fun. And did you also say that plants, trees, etc., also have this system, or is it? Oh.
No, but they. I would say that plants do something called metabolize.
Right.
That's something that. So in my world, we work through kind of 4 systems. Okay, one is spiritual. So choose your paradigm over there, but there's enough research there and all that to say that that's correct. But there's 3 physical systems. So one is a fat-based system, all right? So and we store, basically you can't eat all the time. So we have to store resources and chemical mediators for future use. Okay. We do that on something called in a fat cell, in something called a triglyceride.
Okay.
Okay, we've all heard of that.
Right, you know it.
so within 2 enzyme steps, though, everything you can stick on a triglyceride will become an endocannabinoid. All right.
Okay.
Will break down into an endocannabinoid.
All right.
And so fat-based system, system 1. Endocannabinoid system, system 2. Turns out the endocannabinoid system is our master regulatory system. It's involved with every single regulatory process in our body. Everything. Okay. Either directly or indirectly. Please, prove me wrong. And I can walk you through, whatever you want.
I think it makes. I had just enough biology and microbiology and human physiology to act like I think I can ask a question. So I think that sounds very reasonable. And it kind of, the fact that so many people find so much benefit from it kind of almost answers the state question 788, earning 57% yes on the ballot. Everybody, 60-40, they seem to understand it's beneficial with very little side effects. Okay, there's no reason yet to get out of the science, because the most dramatic demonstration of your company, GnuPharma, and GnuPharma.com with a silent G, is progress with autism. And I wanted to touch on that real quickly because that is a huge issue.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So again, what is autism? Well, the model that I just really started talking about. So again, we work through these 4 systems. 3 are physical, fat-based, endocannabinoid system. And then the 3rd system is a bacterial system. And we developed this system about the time we developed a fight or flight response. You're thinking, why is he not talking about autism?
No, I'm not. I'm intrigued with what you're saying.
So the 3rd system is a bacterial system, and we developed it about the time we developed a fight or flight response. Okay. So whatever little bug that was, but we had to have had a stomach. Okay. Because all the chemicals we need to regulate our bodies come off of a triglyceride, okay? All the chemicals we need to regulate our mind, our mental function, our cognition, come out of a bacterial system that we develop in our gut. And
excellent.
It's literally L-tryptophan, L-tyrosine, and L-phenylalanine we produce in our guts that produce the chemicals we need: dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, which is epinephrine now, norepinephrine. All these chemicals that we need to basically run our mind come from our gut, okay? And so that's why it's important what we eat. But again, if you think about these different systems, that's how we basically adapt and balance to our environment, okay? So it's that basically important how these systems work. Okay, so now autism.
Hold on, let me reset. I just got my intercom whistle. You're listening to the brilliant expertise of Chip Paul with GnuPharma and OK4Uapproved.com, which we'll talk about later in the show. We're talking about the endocannabinoid system with expert Chip Paul, the primary author State Question 788, and head on into it. I always reset every 15 minutes.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So again, autism, so we talked about these kind of 3 systems and 4, 1 spiritual, but 3 physical. So autism, what is it? Well, again, what do you have to stick on a triglyceride? Well, you have to stick 3 different kinds of fatty acids. So saturated fat, bacon, things like that, which is where cholesterol comes from, by the way,
right,
which is where estrogen comes from, which is where testosterone comes from, which is where vitamin D comes from. So if you're deficient in those, you're probably not eating enough saturated fat. Okay, so monounsaturated fat, which is olive oil. Okay, so oleic acid, which is important. And then polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. How many of those do you eat every day? We should know, because it should be a lot.
Oh, boy.
Zowie. Yeah, I know. And they should be in balance, omega-3 and omega-6. Okay, so guess what happens? So the worst place that I could possibly wreck you, Tom, as a human, would be the enzyme that deals with polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, something called delta-6 desaturase, okay? And that is where autistic people are wrecked. Okay.
Because they have too much or not enough.
They can't do it. So they can't break down polyunsaturated fatty acids. Okay, so now I just told you saturated fat is where cholesterol comes from, and then estrogen and testosterone and vitamin D and androgen and all these other things come from saturated fat from cholesterol. Okay, so if you are not sticking cholesterol on a triglyceride, guess what? You don't make all that other stuff.
Wow.
Okay, and your body can kind of reclaim it over there. But on polyunsaturated fatty acids, it's true. You cannot reclaim polyunsaturated. So if you cannot deal with them, your body cannot make endocannabinoids. So we just talked about that being your master regulatory system. It also cannot make your master immune regulators. So the things you need to really defend yourself. So every severely autistic kid should die. First allergy, first infection should kill them. But guess what happens? In the most godly and cool thing in the world, this third system, the bacterial system, picks up the slack. And they have an alien gut. It looks nothing, serious, it looks nothing like yours and mine, nothing at all. They make all these short chain fatty acids that are highly inflammatory, and it saves their lives. It gives them this different immune system, but it's almost like an advanced immune system. This is the thing that no one's put together yet. They don't get sick. I mean, they literally, oh yeah, they do. They occasionally will get a virus. But
by and large, they have a great immune system.
Oh, they don't get sick like most normal humans do by any stretch of the imagination. The other thing, so what happens though, they manufacture all these things that are real, and proponic acid is one of them, butyric acid is another. But proponic acid, sadly, if you take proponic acid and you inject it into a rat, that rat will get all the symptoms of autism. The cool thing about it is if you give that rat salt, that will reverse all the symptoms. It's reversible, okay? So again, if you can stop the source of proponic acid and neutralize it with salt, the symptoms are reversible, at least in a rat.
Well, we start with research, yeah.
So that would indicate, again, that if we can stop the source of proponic acid and we can neutralize it, then we can kind of begin to reverse things. But you can't do that by going at the gut. The other thing about the common thing about these kids is they all love salt, right? Because they're trying to neutralize the proponic acid. Wow. Yeah, which is I literally blow these families away. Your kid likes salt, and
I'm an old guy. My mother used to tell a story of a little girl who was like 3 or 4, and they would always catch her under the bed, hiding places, eating a stick of butter.
Yeah.
And they were like, my God, the kid, da-da-da-da. They finally took her in. She had a low cholesterol thing. And she was trying to get that thing. The body knows The body knows.
Wow, that's crazy because and we have such this bad impression of saturated fat, right? And again, that's where, if you're deficient in vitamin D, guess what? You're deficient in saturated fat, okay? Because you're deficient in cholesterol. Again, if you're taking statin drugs, stop, figure out another way, right? There's natural products ways to fix, all that, right?
Right.
High cholesterol. So, yeah.
So in a way, you were talking about the triangle. I swear we're going to get to the party, but first the science. We've got to drag all the science. We force the information out of the scientist. So GnuPharma, GNUPH Armas. It's GnuPharma.com. It's GNUPharma. And you work with your wife, Cynthia. You've developed a brand based on GnuPharma's science called TrueMedX. You find that at TrueMedX.net. What is TrueMedX?
TrueMedX is our brand, and so GnuPharma, we have science, right? So I'm a theorist, I'm also sort of a formulator, so I can take my theory and put it in a formulation, but the theory lives over here in GnuPharma, and the formulation lives over here in TrueMedX. Okay. Yeah, and so it's a way we can and so everything that we talk, all the autism stuff that we have, we sell under basically on TrueMedX, it's .com, but TrueMedX.com, and it's called Focus. And again, if you are interested in that, if you're a family, we work with families all the time with autism. We want to help you with a solution. Sometimes you need the tincture, sometimes you need the tablets. It depends on your kid, the nose spray sometimes. Right. So it just depends on the severity of the situation. But we absolutely work with families every day, and we want to help them kind of find that right solution. So, yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic, because autism is really, it's a high-profile issue these days. And, apparently what you're doing there, I have never heard anything like what you're talking about. So, apparently you're on the cutting edge of this issue with autism. Literally, this is cutting edge. So, did anybody studying autism in the past, they didn't have this endocannabinoid system information, so they were just guessing in other places, or what happened with that?
No, there's a ton of research on autism, right? So there's a bunch, I'm standing on a lot of shoulders, if you will.
But did they have the endocannabinoid system information yet?
No.
So they could never connect it to that.
No. And again, no one has built I built this model just to try to be able to explain to people, kind of what I'm seeing of how we work, right? But it turns out that this model is pretty right, because all these systems talk to each other. So this, fat-based system talks to the bacterial system through something called PPARs, PPAR neuroreceptor, right? Okay. And you can manipulate that, but it has a lot to do with how we process sugar, how we process fat, a lot of the things that are kind of wrong with us right now, and we're very kind of messed up in these systems, so we don't keep our master regulatory system correct. And guess what? We have diseases, right?
So yeah. This was your This is when you're kind of touching on the broadness of how your patent touches a broader area than you originally had even thought it might. Is that correct?
Yes.
Whoops.
Yeah. So we literally have how these systems, talk to each other, patented or patent pending. And again, they're not, it's not a ooh-ah. It's literally, I want to keep pharma, out of our business. I want this is all could be done with natural products. And I give this away, all the time. And I don't give away the methods of my patents, and I never will.
Well, that's,
the ability to help you all the time. In every class I do, all the time, because I think this is really important knowledge. It's world, again, humbly said, it's world-changing knowledge that we all have to have, because here's the trick, folks. You have the power to take back your health. Don't let pharma be your god, right? Okay?
Right.
Because let nature be your god, because that should be our god, because
yeah.
That's what God gave us.
The 4-year-old little girl in my story knew what she needed. She didn't. She knew where to get it. She knew where to get it too.
Yeah, no joke. That's cool. And again, so if you're testosterone deficient, guess what? Eat more bacon and butter, right?
Yeah. Tell your wife, no, I'm gonna have another piece of bacon, honey. Isn't that what you want?
Absolutely. Yeah. She can do it because that's where estrogen comes from. So
there you go. Well, this is fascinating stuff. And again, we live in. I appreciate your humility in the things that you've done. You're clearly a smart guy. But I mean, we live in the age of scientific exploration. We have all these brand new tools we're learning all sorts of things. And so it's not surprising to me that guys like you that get a desire to learn about a thing, dig in and figure out something that nobody else has figured out before. Because the show's all about me and I'm a word etymologist, what is the word dysregulation in cannabinoid endocannabinoids? What is dysregulation? The sentence is, under your company's model of human function, autism was mapped as to dysregulation in the endocannabinoid system. What is dysregulation is my question.
Oh, no, that's good. So that's very good. So it means that basically you're not getting enough gas or horsepower or resources to do proper regulation. So if you think about in a car, right? So in a car, if I didn't give you enough oil, right, things are going to begin to go wrong in your engine. Or if I cut the oxygen out of your carburetor, right? So things are going to
heats up, all sorts of different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, all different kinds of things. And so autism, because it's such a high level thing, this high level thing right off of triglyceride, man, it's like sugar in your gas tank, right? So it's you're not running on this fuel anymore. You're running on this bacterial system. They've got to eat different. They've got to do all kinds of things because it's all up here. But again, if we know where that dysregulation is, and it's actually
okay. So I get it now. It took me a second, but now I see what you're saying. The thing is, it's not that it's not regulated. It's just, this is kind of like it's not ignorance. Is you've been taught wrong. You have misinformation as opposed to no information. It's that it's regulated wrongly as opposed to not regulated at all. That is dysregulation. Okay. Excellent. I swear we're going to get to the fun part because what we want to talk about is public opinion, the stuff that happened in Colorado in 2014. And I believe the answer to the things that you want done is public opinion. In fact, it's the answer to what everybody wants done is public opinion. The only difference between a king and a tyrant is public opinion. They both carry the same function and the same power. We love the king, we hate the tyrant because one is loved with public opinion and one is hated with public opinion. And so public opinion rules the day. And we have had am I right in saying that you indicate there's a lot of research on cannabis, but it hasn't reached the triangle you call it. Is that a form of deplatforming, or is it just because of categorical analysis?
So who controls the platform? Pharma controls the platform, right? So
right.
Again, this is a pharma platform. It's FDA and pharmacy and physician. So most physicians, if you go, doc, marijuana works, they'll go, well, let me go to my PDR, right? Well, it ain't in my PDR, so it don't work.
Right.
Why isn't it in my PDR?
Because it's not in there. And again, they're living in the past. They're not living in the future, current, cutting edge understanding of new technologies. Literally, they're anyway, that's a whole nother subject of their liability. They're almost forced to guess into the past instead of venturing out because of government regulation, which is what we're going to talk about next. Chip Paul joining us here tonight on 3D Politics every Monday night, right here on Facebook. Tommy McKay, your verbal Viking, with Oklahoma's most influential cannabis executive. All the fun and the suit and tie at the same time. All right, Chip Paul, For the very end here, for the bottom of the hour, we're putting you in the, we're just going to stop your video and you know how to play.
Yes.
The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of State in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. Tommy McKay, your fine host, your director, founder, and creator of 3DPolitics. Ever since February 2019, every Monday night, right here on Facebook. Tonight, joining me is Oklahoma's most influential cannabis executive. Let's ask Chip Paul to come back in and join us once again for the bottom half of the hour. Chip Paul, thank you for joining us. We talked all about the science, the cutting edge information that you've learned about autism and the endocannabinoid system. I'm excited to know all that stuff about every mammal and the insects and all that stuff that we talked about last. That was good stuff. Real quick, OK4U approved. It is most recently, you've been instrumental in the foundation of a new trade organization in the state. It's called OK4U approved. It's at OK, the number 4, the letter U, approved.com. Says here that you interface directly with the OMMA lawyers, etc. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about should lead us into the legal freedom issues.
Yeah, sure. So, OK4U approved is a trade organization for the cannabis industry. And by virtue, and I'm the executive director of that organization. So by virtue of that, we do interface. We don't really interface with the OMMA lawyers, but we interface more with the OMMA executives.
Yeah, there's a comma in my text here. It's OMMA, comma, lawyers, comma, commercial business owners, comma, patients and other stakeholders.
Yeah, so when we
nice correction. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries, and lawmakers, and so we get involved with the back end of the business. There's not a lot of people really on the back end of marijuana if you look at it. And again, we all need to probably communicate. And we all try to communicate through various channels, but I just try to facilitate a lot of that communication, and I try to be kind of the point man on stuff. And here's what we the people are thinking, and hey, we the people, here's what government is thinking. But at the same time, I try to, from that position, I also try to just facilitate the liberties that we've won under SQ 788, right? Which again, we won a lot of liberties. Let's not lose those. So, I mean, that would be
right.
And then let's also, continue to kind of advance this business. So right now, cannabis, if you're a banker, are you going to loan me money to start my cannabis business? I don't know, man. That's a little risky, right? If you're an insurance company, are you going to, insure me? I mean, right now it's actually happening. So we don't really think of us as that much of a risk. But anyway, part of my goal is to de-risk this business, to make sure that we advance the science, as I kind of know it, and lead. I mean, Oklahoma, we're killing it, man. We got the best situation here in Oklahoma as to medical marijuana possible for both patients and business. So again, we've got some holes, we've got some foreign influence happening, we've got some people trying to get in our business that we don't need in our business. Let's pour that up, and that's why we're re-petitioning the state. We'll do that very soon.
Excellent. So we're starting to lose a little bit of your audio, so lean in a little bit. So this is one of my questions, the 3D scrutiny, where I press against whatever we think, instead of being nice, I ask a mean question.
Good.
So state question 788, we're out from underneath government regulation to a certain degree. Oh, we like that. The new petition you have, aren't we begging for more government regulation? It's kind of like it's like, oh, please regulate us after we just begged you not to regulate us, right?
No, and this is a very good point, because marijuana really is, and again, why have we ceded this issue to the left? By God, I want to seize it back for the right, and really it should be seized back for the right, because it's a freedom and liberty and personal choice issue, really, and it is a get a government out of our business issue. But here's the key, right? So right now, in a very similar way that, again, you want to grow tomatoes, great. Let's fight for your right to grow tomatoes, and that's what we're trying to do. So you should have the right to grow tomatoes. You should grow them in your backyard as long as you own your property. You don't infringe on my rights as a whatever landlord or whatever the hell, right? But again, you should have that right. Okay. But if you begin to grow them for human consumption, past, your neighbors and you and all your friends and your church members and all that, well, at that point, you might want to test them, maybe, before you put them in research, right? So we might want to begin to, have some controls on them, just to.
But why isn't research held responsible for that? Why are we asking the government to regulate that?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I mean, if research is selling lousy tomatoes, people are like,
I'm in the tomato camp, believe me.
I'm just pressing for the sake of the argument.
No, and it's a great argument. And again, we all should, frankly, be in the tomato camp. But it's a pragmatic, it's kind of a pragmatic argument. It's kind of what can we get? And again, we have to work and operate. The other thing that I'm trying to think of is, federally, how does this roll out, right? So federally, we'll down. And again, I think what we've done in this new petition, Jed Green is a very good guy that's working on this petition, but I think what we've done on this petition is we've prepared ourselves for what could come down federally in a good way, right? Because it's going to look like it's going to, what they're going to do is exactly what they did in 2018, no joke. And they're just going to go, yeah, it's okay. But states, you figure it out, right? And so they deferred to ag, state ag and hemp under Farm Bill 2018. So again, that's probably what they're going to, states, you figure it out as to ag, state health, you figure it out as to health, and FDA will regulate all the states. See you later, bye, right? So it's going to be something like that, but we've got to make sure that whatever we do, we don't, we're okay for all that.
Oh gosh. Okay, so here I am, swayed again by a fine expert guest, because I never change my mind unless the expert guest can do it. So I'm a jeweler by trade for several years, selling diamonds for jewelry. And the GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, back in the 30s, when they started, the GIA was created in the 30s to police themselves. It was created by the gem dealers to police themselves. Yeah. And they did it to defend themselves proactively against government control. So the gem dealers themselves said, look, we'll run you out of town if you sell fake diamonds, right? And so I can see kind of an analogy here where the professional cannabis executives are saying, look, we've got to police ourselves and coordinate that with the state and federal governments, or they'll come in and do it their way. We have to be ready for their engagement.
Well, and again, let's get in front of it. And again, let's get in front of it in a leadership way. Let's tell them what to do. Let's not have them tell us what to do. Again, there's no reason, and we're so far in front of this already in Oklahoma. But again, we can get even further in front of it, and we can move that more, this way. Again, so we're going to run two petitions. One is almost all the way over here, right? So there's still, in my mind, because of the irresponsibility in the industry, and I mean, come on, guys, there's irresponsibility. This is a black market operation that just suddenly went professional. That doesn't happen overnight. So there are irresponsible people in the industry, and we have to protect ourselves from them irresponsible people. So as soon as we're all rainbows and butterflies, then we can go over here to, tomatoes. All right. But until then, I mean, again, we got, a lot of, ex-criminals, let's just say, still in the industry.
So you say we're ahead in a way. Is Colorado ahead of us, or are we leading in any way?
No, Colorado is not ahead of us. We have 10% of our population are medical patients. We have an open system where, Tom, if you decide tomorrow you want to quit your job as an announcer and a jeweler, you can go get into the marijuana business, and $2,500 in a dream, you can go do that.
God, if I had $2,500, I'd just buy some marijuana.
Yeah, well, there you go. And then forget about the dream.
Yeah, what the hell am I going into business for? That costs money. Anyway.
Your endocannabinoid system. In Colorado, gosh, it's 50K maybe, and again, you're entering this incredibly very recreational market. And
so tell me the difference. So two things I want to get from you: what's recreational versus medical, federal versus state? Because, I mean, we're in the wild, wild west here. We can make up a whole bunch of laws. This is what you're talking about, preparing our the feds could all of a sudden go the other way, too. Oh, no, we're going to fix it for you. So, I mean,
that would be, seriously, so you talk about, like, all this election stuff that's happening, and we're beginning to realize the power of our states' rights. Well, guess what, guys? We realized it a while back with marijuana, and we've got a heck of a lot of power in our states' rights. So good luck trying to take away these liberties and freedoms that we've won.
Yeah, you and me, yeah. But I am amazed. I put a hell of a lot more credibility in my neighbors 10 years ago until I saw half of them put on the mask. I mean, you sheep are walking around. It says on the box the mask won't protect you. And then if you're wearing one, why do I need one? And 1,000 things you've already heard. But I had a lot more reason to expect everybody would be on board with the freedom train than I'm seeing. So you and me, yeah, good luck. But the problem is public opinion, man. We got to win public opinion somehow.
You're a little bit more, again, that's what we're doing, right? So that's why I'm actually coming out here, and I'm beginning to talk about marijuana as a freedom and liberty issue. And I want to marry marijuana up with the GOP. What world?
Well, God, maybe they'll learn how to throw a party eventually.
Yeah, but it should be, right? So again, I think, a lot of things are changing right now. I think we're coming into, the Great Awakening is a good saying, isn't it, for what's kind of going on right now? And I think it doesn't matter, what train you're on, what movie you're watching. I think we're all kind of coming into a big awareness that, my gosh, the world as we know it is not the world as we know it. And we better wake up and stand up and change it, or everything that we know about our freedoms and liberties will be taken away.
Oh, yeah. Since JFK, they've been selling us a world that just isn't it anymore. I mean, it's a damn lie.
Yeah, but look, in what world does Afghanistan make sense? Again, I know this is a little divergent.
No, but I mean, this is politics. And the fact is, look how critical an election is. It literally is just like people drop dead 6 months later because of a buffoon and a stolen election. And that's my opinion. Poof, there it is. I mean, it's just clearly irregularities out the wazoo.
Stolen election 1,000%. And again, I'm a math guy, right? So I understand the statistics. I understand exactly. Imagine I had I won't talk about that. Let's not go down that
person thing had happened, and then it all went by real fast.
Yeah. Anyway,
let me just say this. You're listening to the brilliant discussion between Chip Paul and Tommy McKay, your verbal Viking, right here at 3DPolitics every Monday night right here on Facebook. Catch me at verbalviking@gmail.com. And Chip Paul, tell them where they can reach you for information and contact.
Chip at GnuPharma.com.
Wow, that was tough. GnuPharma is GNU Pharma.
Yep. and new way, if you're an old hacker like kind of I am, new was kind of this radical idea that we could open source Microsoft. So when we got onto some of the ideas we got onto in our company, I knew I could open source pharma. So that's why we called our company GnuPharma.
Fantastic. I mean, you probably still play vinyls. For all I know.
Zap every now and then.
Well, you know, you got, hey, they're preferable from what I hear if the density is right on the vinyl.
Yeah, now you find out all this stuff about them, though. Who knew all that good music was, has all this Satanism and all this other crap around it? So it's like, that's like I burned my
I thought we knew that, though. Hey, yeah. So so one of my complaints about I like libertarian ideals or principles, I should say, actually ideals. My complaint about the libertarians has been they bring they basically bring the Bill of Rights without the balance of the Declaration of the Independence. We've got all that freedom of the individual in the Bill of Rights. So yeah, and there's nothing says libertarian better than the Bill of Rights. But the problem with the libertarians is they want to take the Declaration as a balancing factor out of their formula. So while I love the libertarian ideals, concepts, and especially for capitalism and growing tomatoes, I mean, libertarians fall on the bad side of public opinion, like they advertised against marijuana with the reefer madness thing back in the day, and it continues to this day. Another thing that I have tried to explain to people, you could do it better than I do, and they're like, oh no, cocaine, that's a drug. Have you ever had Novocaine, or you bought Oragel? Oh yeah, that's for children. Yeah, where in the hell do you think that came from? The Colombians chew on the leaves to numb their... It's like, so these natural things, they demonize them through the press, and then in a way, this thing you're telling us, they deplatform your ability to codify the research.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as this. If you look at a deer, does a deer get IBS in the wild? Does a deer get autoimmunes? Does a deer
IBS? That's TMI, Chip. TMI with IBS.
Deer doesn't get, it doesn't, right? So a deer might get eaten by something, or might get some viral disease. But again, that deer only gets sick when you bring it into captivity and you feed it the same crap that we eat. And good Lord, corn syrup is the worst in the world, right?
Yeah, what's the deal with corn syrup? I saw you not liking corn syrup. And it ruined Coke. Hey, it ruined Coca-Cola. And they took the cocaine out of Coca-Cola. No wonder. So now, what's the deal with corn syrup?
So corn syrup, our bodies are designed to run on fat or sugar. And we should really run on fat most of the time, right? Because that's the way we store energy and use energy and chemical matters for future use is really in fat. So we should run on fat, but we should briefly run on sugar to process fat, okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you have a lot of sugar in your diet, you're going to run on the sugar first, because that helps you build fat and all this stuff first. So when you eat fruit, that's the normal sugar, the natural sugar before you start processing everything. In the jungle, we're eating fruit. It has citric acid in it, which forces you back to process fat. Something like corn syrup is it's worse than cane sugar. It has citric acid. You just run on it all the time. And if you eat syrup all the time, if it's persistent for environment, you will be obese. You will have diabetes. You will have heart issues. You will have something called metabolic syndrome. You will suffer. You will have inflammation. You will have all kinds of different problems. Lots of metabolic problems. Because we're not designed to run on sugar. We're designed to run on fat.
Interesting, but the design, the beautiful, intelligent design, is that the sugar gives you that nitro boost, when you need it. The corn syrup, it's like sugar meth. It's just It's just constant.
Bleh.
Yeah.
Like running, if you have a car, it'd be like, here I'm going to fill up your car with sugar. It might get you down the road, right? But God's going to gum up all kinds of stuff. You're going to have all these problems.
Let me ask you this: is because, and this is just out of sheer ignorance from a chemical standpoint. If I eat granules of sugar and they get processed one way, and then I eat corn syrup and it gets processed another way, is the corn syrup more? Is it broken down more gooey because it's syrup, or is it just doesn't matter once it gets broken down? Once it's broken down, it hits the chemical base, and you're there.
Sugars are sugars, right? So it's,
okay.
But it just, corn syrup is fructose. I mean, so it mimics. It's very much a mimic, like a fruit syrup, and so your body just it loves it, right? But cane sugar is more like a different molecule that kind of mimics these things, like a fructose, right? So it's your body might not like it as much. So, if it's going to have a preference, it's going to definitely prefer that corn syrup because it makes fructose, right? So.
Has any of your studies dealt in the endocannabinoid system dealt with mirror image, three-dimensional structure of chemical elements, or what, you know what I'm saying? So like NutraSweet, the way I learned about NutraSweet is that it's a mirror image of the sugar molecule. They just simply take the tripod and throw it the other way, and so it tastes like sugar to the tongue, but the body doesn't recognize it as sugar, and it passes through. Have you dealt with any of that three-dimensional shape of the molecules in your studies?
Yeah, so a lot of these molecules, and again, that's a good thing because a lot of these molecules look the same. So again, you might have something in cannabis that has a molecule, and then you find something in nature like this yank and kava that has a similar molecule, and guess what? They have the same.
And that thing you do, that is a puzzle piece fixture, right? The reason that happens and they connect is because it's a three-dimensional shape that fits another three-dimensional shape, correct?
Literally a link. So a neurotransmitter will affect a neuroreceptor like a lock and a key, and they'll do work. So dopamine works this way, serotonin works this way, but above all of those things is this thing called the endocannabinoid system. It literally helps regulate all these. But you work through the ED1 neuroreceptors and anandamide. So THC in cannabis mimics anandamide, which is your made to do work, right? So that's why it really helps you. It can help your body do work, give you more control surface.
Okay, so let's touch on the recreational versus medicinal. So in Oklahoma, apparently we have medicinal, right? It's legal if you have the card.
Yes.
Okay, but we don't have recreational. The reason we don't have recreational is why, and are you for recreational? And is that what the OK4Uapproved.com is about?
Yeah, so I want to I think I've heard so much noise about an adult use that I think owe it to Oklahoma to present that. But I'm not necessarily, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. We need to get our medical program enforced, cleaned up, and all that first. So what that would look like is, or the way we're going to present it in these petitions is, again, if you have a medical card, it costs you less. Nice. I don't like. Okay,
hold on. Your audio roboted out when you said if you have a medical card, and then it went blah, blah, blah. If you have a medical card, something.
So if you have a medical card, so what basically the way we're proposing this to Oklahoma is this: if you have a medical card and you go out at a dispensary, you will be offered a lesser tax rate than you are now. It annoys me that right now again, why are we being taxed on and I put it in the dang law as an excise tax. Sorry, guys, but it can taking our medical need. We really shouldn't be taxed our medical need, right? But anyway, if you're a medical patient, you'll be taxed less. You go and show your driver's license at checkout, and this is the way we'll offer adult use. Basically, you'll be a higher tax rate, like a 15% tax.
Gotcha.
So it will just kind of penalize the out-of-state people and all that. We won't. Been done in other states is they've wrecked their medical program. They've okay, adult use grow medical marijuana or grow marijuana license versus a medical marijuana license, grow license. Those are two different things. And one costs $25,000 and one costs $2,500. That's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. We're going to do what's logical for next.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So, OK4Uapproved.com. And what is OrcaOK.com?
So Orca will be the petitioning entity. So Orca OK. And if you want to look at language, we're trying to be really transparent about this. You can look at language, OrcaOK.com. And again, if you want to help, get involved. There's signups, there's donates. Read the language, though. Give us feedback. We're almost closed on the adult use, so give us feedback there. Yep.
So are they still doing, there was somebody back in the day, they would set up these tents with the weed sign out front and have a petition to sign, and you would drive by. So one time I went by, now I've got kids in the car back in the day, and it's like, I'm all for the thing, but again, I'm age appropriate right now. So I had a conversation with a gal standing at the table, and I said, I'm all for your thing, right? And but they looked, they look like dope smoking, the Rush Limbaugh maggot infested la-di-da. And so, she was, I'm not saying she was, what I'm saying was, so I was saying to her that plate presentation means a lot. And when you stand out here with a low-level plate presentation, it brings on a low-level perception of the public when you drive by, and it looks like you're not a professional. Then it looks like, well, kids, that's just a pot smoker. When really this is not that. And so I was saying, what if you did the same thing you're doing, but put on a coat and tie or something to where you pretend like you're an executive and you do a thing, and have you signed the petition? I'm like, yeah, you can't. Yeah. Anyway, I do a show, so trying to promote your thing in a different way.
I agree with you. You'll see a different look to petitioners this time.
Well, I'm not saying that was you. I'm just saying that in general, this is part of the perception problem that the public has, is that the people who are willing to stand up and fight aren't the people that look like coat and tie people.
They will be, but they are.
Yeah.
And watch, what happens. And again, we're getting ready to, this should be a Republican Party issue.
You think
it should be a plan?
So let's do, in the last couple of minutes before we get out of here, and I want to make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of you. Again, thank you, Chip Paul, for bringing your expertise and all the stuff that you do and have done in the past. Just amazing. You're never going to shake the science, because all your arguments for the partiers are legitimately founded in science, and you're that guy. So everybody's going to be like, ask him. He says it's not dangerous. So, and basically he's, typically, and that's correct. So once again, before we get out of here, Chip Paul, where do we find you? How do we contact you?
So just chip at GnuPharma.com, GnuPharma.com.
And you're working with OK4Uapproved.com and Orca, ORCA, OK.com. So more petitions coming in the future.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll see 2 petitions probably within the next month or so.
And what are they going to deal with?
So the first petition will really shore up medical. So the medical program, it will move basically the medical program out from health to a standalone board. You'll want to pay attention to how we cast that board. I think we've done it in a good way. That's debatable, right? So pay attention to that. We pull in a lot of other departments and stakeholders, which we should. That's a really, really good piece of law right now. So look at that. It's constitutional. And then again, we're going to do the adult use as a separate one and offer that separate. But we really shore up the enforcement.
That's good.
Got to kind of, yeah.
That's excellent, because it's the industry attempting to clean up its own industry, and that's, I think, an appropriate way to go. This minimizes government influence and intervention, etc. Once again, Chip Paul, thank you for being here. Find him out there at GnuPharma.com, OK4Uapproved.com, and TrueMedX.net. For all that stuff. We're going to send you away at this point. We're going to put you back into the waiting room. Chip Paul, thanks for being here tonight on 3D Politics with Tommy McKay. That's it for tonight's show. Don't forget, next week I have landed David D'Ambroso, the amazing man himself, campaign manager and former director of campaigning. He is the he's on the ground floor knocking doors for Stitt. Field director. My producer just told me, field director David D'Ambroso next week, September 6th, former field director for Governor Kevin Stitt, with all his wit, charm, and opinion. We'll see you next week.